the overriding now I know there was a lot of civil rights movement despite the death of Martin Luther King it still had momentum. It was still hadn't, I think, quite reached
the Poor People's March.
Yeah. In the suburbs where most of you grew up, or some of you grew up, what was the feeling among just your neighbors and friends? Were you, I know that you were very socially liberal always. Did you feel like you were fighting a losing battle when you would speak to the neighbor, the guy across the street, maybe even your parents, I don't know. And for those of you living in smaller communities, or did you just not talk about it?
I don't think it was really talked about. I mean, I think for me, it's like being, 16, 17, approaching those years. I just made assumptions that were so incorrect and then just so totally got blown apart when all of this information started coming our way about the civil rights movement and how like the freedom, riders were, what was happening to them and, everything that was being reported in the news, because at that point in time I'm a little bit older, so I'm more apt, to read the paper. So the assumptions that you make is you're thinking that, well, yes, the Civil War was fought, right, to grant, the end to slavery and to grant, freedom for all men are created equal. And so you just assume that that's what was happening, throughout the country, that yes, people were being treated equally. And until I started to become more aware, as I started into my teenage years, that no, there's so many laws and rules and regulations were implemented to, prevent that equality from happening, was like a surprise to me, basically. Yeah, and I also think that as a child going through elementary schools, like you learn a lot from literature, and now there's some just wonderful children's literature that's out there that will acquaint children as to the struggles that different groups of people had to face throughout their lives. And we really weren't exposed to, any of that. So you sort of were insulated, I think.
Especially up here in Boston,
Yeah.
I think. And I think one of the things that really struck me was probably when I started, because I really didn't have a social conscience, I think, until I got into college. And, it kind of, developed. And the jobs I took kind of, did that too. I worked in the meat markets, and a lot of black guys worked in there.
Street?
No, over on South Market Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on Atlantic
Yeah,
Ave there,
for
the
a
old
while.
Clinton markets
Yeah.
there. And my dad got me the job there, basically, I wanted to do, see how different things went and stuff like that. So I ended up working with a lot of black guys on the lugging crew, unloading boxcars of beef and stuff like that. And that was very, segregated. I was the only white guy in the group there. And I had a wonderful woman for a teacher in college. And, thinking about that, but Bill Russell said one thing. I think it was Bill Russell who said, Boston is the most segregated city in the United States. And I remember, before he said that, and looking at the things that were going on down south, and of course the George Wallace campaign and stuff like that when he ran, and saying, oh God, we don't have that up here, feeling kind of, oh no, we're not like that at all. And then I started to think when he said that, I says, yeah, we sure are, and we have, at least they're more honest about their racism down south, and we're hypocritical about it up here. And we are, and it was the parochialism, I think, of Boston that did that. Growing up in the neighborhoods, what we touched on. I mean, growing up in South Boston, I'm a little older than Sherry, but I mean, you had your neighborhood, you had your tribe, more or less, in that area there.
It was your world.
It was, and a funny story is I went to a parochial school in Southie, and we used to save money for Lent. There was a miter box that you'd put a portion of your allowance in there and you'd give it to the church, you know, at the end, and it was for the pagan babies.
Pagan babies in India. They don't
No.
want the girl babies.